Hello, my name is Jared Borth, and I'll be doing a presentation covering the risk breakdown structure for PRM 614. First, we'll start out by doing the overview. We'll be going over the technique description, which just goes over and defines what the technique actually is. Then we'll cover the history, where this all started, the application of where it's used in the real world and workforce. Then we'll do step-by-step instructions to get you to become more familiar with the tool. And then we'll cover some advantages and disadvantages, and then some alternatives that work similar to the risk breakdown structure, and then we'll conclude what we've learned today. First, the technique description. The risk breakdown structure is similar to the work breakdown structure commonly used in estimating the work required to get a project done. It's a top-down breakdown of the risk faced by a project. The practice standard for risk management describes it as a hierarchical framework of potential success of risk to a project. An organization may develop a generic risk breakdown structure for use across all of its projects, or a project may use a project-specific work breakdown structure. So that's basically just saying that they may have a risk breakdown structure that they use on many different projects, or they'll just create one. And say if that a project is very, very complex, they might have a project-specific one. The risk breakdown structure organizes the categories of potential risk on the project, and it essentially it groups, organizes, and defines the total risk exposure of the project. Each descending level represents an increasingly detailed definition of sources of risk in the project, and we'll get into that here in a bit. The use of the risk breakdown structure actually compromises two stages. First stage is develop the hierarchy, which involves creating the hierarchy itself, either based on past experience or relevant concerns of the organization. Then second is the application. The risk breakdown serves as a source for risk identification, analysis, and reporting. Now getting into some of the history. This is actually a pretty new technique, as it has not been around very long. The Software Engineering Institute's taxonomy-based risk identification developed the earliest risk breakdown structure in about 1994. Then, more recently, Dr. David Hilson introduced its current form that we use in the PMBOK in 2002, and this was presented by him at the annual PMI seminar and symposium. This is an example similar to the example that's given in the practice standard for risk management. As you can see, the all risk sources of project risk would be the first level, and then the next level, the next column would be four subcategories, which is technical risk, management, organizational risk, financial risk, and business risk. And then it breaks down even to smaller 6 subcategories that would be like scope definition of technical risk and so on. And this is actually a good tool. Also, you could use the level 2 breakdown as a checklist for all the risk as well. So that it's kind of a two tools in one. Application. The inputs for application are the project risks, I guess the risk breakdown structure itself, and then the objective for application. And the outputs would be more extensive lists of risks, and then the risk categories, which was just shown, and then you'll actually have the hierarchical diagram. This is a risk breakdown used in a study determining whether or not project managers can use existing risk management tools to renovate existing buildings rather than constructing new buildings. They created two risk breakdown structures and compared them and concluded that risk management tools used for the new construction cannot be used for renovating or existing construction. So, as stated before, sometimes risk breakdown structures can be more generic and used across many projects. And in this case, they weren't able to use them, so they actually had to create another one for existing construction projects. This one's a little bit different. As you can see, it's in rows, so you'll see the external sources of project risks, and then also if you go down, number 2 would be internal sources of project risk, and you can see that it breaks down in subcategories, and it's pretty easy to read in this stage as well. So just a different type of a chart. Here's one that is a lot more detailed. This is a complex, huge IT project. You can see that it goes down into many subcategories. The more complex of a project means that more complex risk management tools need to be used. IT organization and report the results of the process using a risk breakdown structure. So just another one. You can see that it goes way down, spiders down into very, very detailed. And then in this instance, you may want to number it to be able to look at the risk as well. Now we'll go over the step-by-step instructions of how to actually use this technique. First, we'll identify general categories of risk sources. These should be the large-scale concerns that would be on the first column in the previous slides. Within each category, identify subgroups. As with the WBS, the key here is to create a discrete group of risk sources. These are subsets of the higher categories. Next, gather project risks identified. Use virtually any idea generation technique to identify relevant risks. Then we'll exhibit the risks. Work with a group to organize the risk appropriately by using logic and natural groupings. The process of affinity diagramming works well here. Next, we'll review the parent groups and subgroups with the participants. Identify the risks. Sort the risk. So we'll sort the risk into the lowest level of the RBS. Then we'll sum the total number of the risk in each category or area at the lowest level. Categorize the risk. The value will illustrate either the risk source with the greatest volume of risk serving as an indicator of the risk requiring the greatest attention. And then finally, we'll utilize the values. If the values are summed into the highest level of the project level, then the total may be used to compare the level of risk to other projects. Now we'll go over some advantages and disadvantages. Advantages. First, it offers a framework for other risk identification techniques such as brainstorming. It ensures coverage of all types of risks, and it tests for blind spots or omissions within the project, and it helps identify reoccurring risks, and it can be very simple or complex. There really is no disadvantages to using this technique. It really offers a great tool set here and is very helpful in, I guess, every aspect of risk management within a project. Here are some alternatives that can be used in place of the risk breakdown structure, or RBS. Affinity diagrams also helps categorize risk and helps identify and address the situation. Progress decision program charts, also known as PD, PC, work well, and interrelationship digraphs as well. Alright, what did we learn? We learned that risk breakdown structures organizes risk into categories. It is a relatively new technique for risk management. It is applied in a wide variety of different industries and they can be used throughout different projects. And it has many disadvantages, and there really is not any disadvantages at all. And this concludes my project. Thank you.